Hello, Facebook friends. Thank you so much for everything that you all said last week. It was such a pleasure to read. And I have to say, I was a bit surprised. I didn't realise it was going to be so popular. So, you all asked me to come back with some more. So I thought, well, I have to oblige the people, don't I? I did ask you, what did you want to hear this week? Whether it was another Louise Bennett or an Anansi story. And the overwhelming response was for Brother Anansi. Surprised I was. So yes, this week you're going to have a Brother Anansi story. If there's anybody watching this that's not so familiar with Brother Anansi, I just thought I'd give you just a quick breakdown or quick history. So Anansi is actually a West African word. It's from the Ashanti region of Ghana. So we can understand how it got to Jamaica via the Atlantic slave trade. Yeah, it was part of the curriculum in Jamaica. I don't know if it still is. I've lost track with that. And past generations learned all about Anansi, and grandmothers used to traditionally tell an Anansi story at family gatherings, and they also used to put their children to bed with an Anansi story, much like the way we do today. It's such a shame that it's been lost over the generations, and I think maybe that's why I felt I'd wanted to contribute a little offering just to keep some of our culture and heritage alive. You know, we can't allow everything to die or to become so heavily diluted that we don't recognise it anymore, can we? So, yeah, Anansi, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Anancy and Sorrel. Once upon a time, it was Christmas Eve morning. It was Grand Market Day, and Brother Anansi stood by his gateway watching all the people going down to market. The basket on their heads and the hampers on the donkeys were laden with fruits and flowers and ground provisions. Anansi called out, "Happy Grand Market, everybody!" "Thank you, Brother Anansi," replied the people. Anansi said to himself, "What a cross is palm me. It looked like say everybody pick off everything off of every tree carry gone a grand market." Anansi groaned as another cartload of oranges and grapefruits went by. "Massa me massy, them no left a thing in the field for me to scuffle." Anansi waited until everybody passed by on their way to the market. And then he went from field to field in search of scufflings. "What a hard set of people, Isa." Anansi grieved. "Them clean out everything out of the field, them. Not a chinks a scuffling for me." Suddenly, Anansi exclaimed, "What a scenting so red?" And he broke the stalk of a long red plant and held it to his nose. "It don't got no smell, but it pretty fi look pon. I wonder what it good for." Anansi picked a few more pieces of the red plant and stuck them in his trouser waist, mumbling to himself, "Well, since you is the only thing I can scuffle, I am scuffling your red sintin. I don't know what I'm going to do with you yet. I don't know if you can eat, but I might even have to eat you," laughed Anansi. He danced and sang all the way to the Grand Market. When he got there, Anansi looked around at all the beautiful stalls full of fruit kind and cooked foods and foods cooking. Anansi said to himself, "I will have to work up my brains and find a way to raise something." He stopped in front of a stall with plenty of oti-iti apples, pointed to the red plant in his trouser waist, and said to the stallkeeper, "Aye, missus, swap me some of your red things for some of me red things." The woman asked him, "What for your red things name?" Anansi said, "Swap me first and I will tell you." The woman replied, "Tell me first and I will swap you." Anansi said, Swap me first, and I will tell you. The man in the pumpkin stall next to the woman's orty-eaty stall shouted, Missus, if you want the red things, why you don't just grab it away from the little man? Anansi laughed and shouted back, grab it if you're bad. The man grabbed after Anansi. Anansi said, slip, and ran away. The man chased Anansi through the market. Several people joined in the chase, shouting, thief, 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 catch the thief. Anansi kept slipping them, darting in and out of the stalls until he reached the hominy stall. The hominy lady had a big jester pot full of boiling water on the fire. She was just about to drop the hominy corn into the pot when Anansi flung the red plant into the water. The hominy lady screamed, what are you throwing at me pot? The crowd rushed up to the pot. One man exclaimed, it looked like blood, but it favour wine. Anansi looked into the pot and laughed, ka, ka, ka. It don't only look like wine, is wine. Anansi mumbled to himself, poor me boy, I hope it's not poison. The man who started the chase rushed forward, grabbed a spoon and tasted the liquid. He made up his face and said, it don't taste good. Anansi said, it don't finish brew yet. It wants some sugar, a little piece of ginger, a little cinnamon, and then you stir so, and then you stir so. And Anansi took a little of all the spices from the hominy lady's stall and threw it into the pot. Anansi tasted the brew. Ka-ka-kaya! Anansi laughed. It tastes nice, like real wine. The hominy lady said, it smells nice. Anansi looked into the pot and whispered in wonderment, oh, you so real. Somebody in the crowd shouted, it named Sorrel. The crowd took up the chorus, Truppence what a Sorrel, Truppence for some Sorrel. Anansi brewed and sold Sorrel all day. It was the most popular drink at the Grand Market. By the end of the day, in true Jamaica fashion, Sorrel had become sorrel. And from that day to today, sorrel is a famous Jamaican Christmas drink. Is Anansi make it? Jack Mandora, me no choose none.